is week number 5 of our series called Peaks and Valleys. We've been tracking the life of a guy by the name of Joseph. He is the son of Jacob. I wish I could give you a whole lot more background. I'm gonna give you a little bit today, but if you haven't been here, all these messages, we've simply been walking through the book of Genesis and breaking it down as we go. And today we're going to see 7 to 8 years of Joseph's life that are extremely significant. When we originally met Joseph weeks ago, he was part of this redneck family, okay? Jacob's his dad, has 4 wives, which is like 3 too many, and he has 15 kids. And Joseph is one of the younger of his kids and one of his favorite kids because Joseph has been born from Rachel, his favorite of his 4 wives. I know that sounds weird saying that now, but we preached through this, so go back and watch it if you don't understand it. Then his brothers got really jealous of him, sold him into slavery. He's made a slave about 16, 17 years old to a guy by the name of Potiphar. And Potiphar, was like an important guy in Egypt. And Joseph is a great man of character. He works hard for Potiphar. He moves up till he's the second most powerful man in his house running the show. And then Potiphar's wife, which I like to call Hotiphar, kind of started looking at Joseph and said, "You look good, we should hook up." And he's like, "Not gonna happen." He's a man of character. He's a man of, and he says, "I'm not going to give in to this." And so she accuses him of sexual assault falsely. He's thrown into prison for years. I mean, literally like 13 years. And then there's some guys in there that work for Pharaoh that have dreams, and he interprets their dreams. It comes from God, the interpretations. And then Pharaoh himself has a dream, and nobody can interpret it. And the servants of Pharaoh say, "Oh yeah, I remember a guy named Joseph, and you should bring him in here. He interpreted my dreams." So he bring him in, and he interprets the dreams of Pharaoh. And the dream said that there was going to be 7 good years with plenty of food in Egypt. Then it would be followed by 7 years of famine where all the food would be destroyed and gone, and like everything would be like, and a lot of people are going to die. And Joseph comes up with a plan to fix this famine and to save the people. And so Pharaoh makes him, last week we saw this, second in command, essentially the second most powerful man in the entire world. And things are turning around for Joseph physically and politically. He was in a valley, now he's in a peak. But the one thing that hasn't changed in his life is his family. The family strain is still there. Some of you in this room today, there were people in your life in the past that you were very close to. Family members that you loved, that you were with them all the time and you loved being around them. And something happened in that relationship and it brought strain and pain into the relationship where now you don't even like to be around them. You don't spend time with them. And when you think about them, it even stirs up in you some anger. And I want today to start out, if you've got a service guide, pull it out. I heard that we ran out here at North Campus. I'm sorry about that. You can write it on your hand. There's a pen in front of you. First point, key thought for today is this. When sin comes into relationships, it separates people and it creates problems. When sin comes into relationships, it separates people and it creates problems. Joseph has had no contact with his family for 20 years. And today, is going to change. If you've got your Bibles, turn them to Genesis chapter 41. We're going to pick up right where we left off last week, verse 41. For those of you that used to go into church and getting a verse vitamin, like here's one verse, good luck, we're going to do a lot more than that today. You might not like it. Sorry. Verse 41. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. This is the equivalent of the most powerful Egyptian credit card that you can have. You can buy whatever you want. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck like a hip-hop star. Verse 43. And he had him ride in the second chariot, which is like a limousine back in that day. And they cried out before him. So he has like a whole posse entourage that are screaming before him, "Bow the knee, bow the knee." So he set him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, I'm Pharaoh. He already knew that, but I'm Pharaoh. And without your consent, no man may lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, which is a bad trade when your name's Joseph. Okay? But he's still under the Pharaoh's rulership here, so he has to do what Pharaoh says. And he gave him a wife also, whose name was Asenath, the daughter of Pharoah, priest of On. So Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. This is a classic rags to riches story. Now, some of you are going to be kind of bothered by this because Joseph is rich now and works for the government. And you don't like that, okay? Like, you don't like either of those things. And I want to like help you out for a second, because in the Christian world today, there's really two kind of main thoughts, okay? And here's one thought in the Christian world. Christians are good guys, and everybody else in this world that's not a Christian is a bad guy. They're evil, and we fight them, okay? We're good versus evil. That's one way of thinking in the Christian life. The other way of thinking, and I actually think is the right way of thinking, is we're all bad guys. And there's one good guy, that's Jesus, and the whole point of this life is to meet him, and then once you meet him, you use the circumstances of your life and the position he's given you to point other people to him. That's a better way of living life. It's a better view of the Christian life, and it's, I think, more accurate and biblical. If you think the first view is true, that you're good as a Christian and everybody else is evil, you will think that somehow we can change our culture today by picketing or by marching or through a Christian concert, the world will be changed, and that's just not the case. In Joseph's life, what we see here is that God positions him, and wherever he's at, he uses his influence and his position for God, to serve God and to serve other people. My question to you is this: what are you doing with the influence God's given you right now? Now, I deal with people all the time that would look at me and say, well, I don't have any influence. No one ever cares. And it usually takes me 5 minutes to sit down with them, and they say, well, maybe I got a little bit of influence. I didn't realize it before. God has placed you on purpose where you're at, where you live, where you work, your position in your family, in order for you to use it for him. How you doing when it comes to that? Write this down. Joseph serves his way into influence. Jesus, later on, this will be consistent with what he said. The disciples are fighting about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And he says to them, yeah, whoever wants to be greatest, serve the least. This is very consistent with what we see in the life of Joseph. Let's continue on, though, because we got a long ways to go. Verse 46. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. Notice he's spreading that influence. He's getting to know the whole land. Now in the 7 plentiful years, the ground brought forth abundantly. So he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt and laid up in the food in the cities. He laid up in every city the food of the fields which surrounded them. Joseph gathered very much grain, as much as the sand of the sea, it says, until he stopped counting, for it was immeasurable. You ever had so much money in your bank account, you're like, I don't even have to look at the numbers anymore. Like, it's always there. Anybody like that in here? Please raise your hand right now. Anybody like that? Okay. I didn't think so. Verse 50. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Pharoah, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. At first, these are kind of weird names, fruitful and forgetful, okay? Just in case you're looking for baby names. But what happens is, when there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of pain in your past and in your circumstances that have happened in the past, I will say, and most of you know this from personal experience, kids can help you forget that. They're like little diversions, okay? I have 4 little diversions in my house. The other day I was working on something. Peter came up and he said, Dad, we need to get some dessert. And I said, well, I'm working on something right now. It seems really nice whenever you think we should get dessert that I have to go get dessert. And he said, all right, Dad, you can have some too. That's what he said to me. And literally, I laughed for like 5 minutes, and then I went and got him dessert, okay? It was so funny. Like, he's giving me permission to go buy him dessert and have some of it. Like, only kids think this way. Like, kids can be great diversions. I actually think a key to my ministry and the strength of my ministry has been the kids. When I go home, man, they divert me from everything that I could worry and stress about. I love my kids. They're a blessing to me. But the other son, he names him Fruitful because God had actually blessed and given him more than even he had before he was put into slavery. Verse 53, then the 7 years of plenty which were in the land ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. One guy trusting God and his word would save an entire country. You want to see the power of knowing God's word? One person really loving this book can change an entire country. This is what we see through Joseph. So when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Then Pharaoh said to the Egyptians, hey, go to Joseph. Whatever he says to you, do. Now this is kind of weird. I mentioned this last week. They think Pharaoh is God. If your God sends you to other people, he's not a very powerful God, okay? He's more like a receptionist, okay? Like this is Pharaoh in this story. Go to Joseph. I don't know how to fix this. The famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, and the famine became severe in the land of Egypt. So all the countries came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain because the famine was severe in all the lands. Now, if you go back in Genesis, God had already said to Abraham, I'm going to use you and your people to be a blessing to all nations. This is what we're seeing play out, that through Joseph, man, they're being a blessing now. He's being a blessing to all nations. It's one of the many ways the people of Israel are going to be a blessing to many nations. Some of you are looking at me right now like, Ben, I don't want to be the leader. I don't want to be the boss at work, okay? Bosses are jerks. They're mean. They take advantage of people. And I would say to you today, you don't have to be like that. You can be a boss that actually cares for the people that work for you. You can actually use your influence for God as a ministry opportunity. Many of you in this room are actually doing that. Some of you, you've been given leadership and you do nothing with that for God. And today, learn through Joseph's situation. Chapter 42. Now we're going to transition back to Jacob. When Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, why do you look at one another? Why are you sitting around staring at each other like you're starving? And he said, indeed, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down to that place. Buy for us there that we may live and not die. Get off your lazy butts. Go get some food. So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, lest some calamity befall him. Like Joseph, he thinks is already dead. Benjamin now has become the favorite. We talked about this 4 weeks now. The danger of favoritism in your family. You want to screw it up real quick? Play favorites. Apparently the other 6 sons are dispensable, okay? Or the other 10 sons are dispensable because he doesn't just want Benjamin to get hurt. That's all he really cares about. And it says this in verse 6, now Joseph was governor over the land, and it was he who sold to all of the people. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. Do you remember why his brothers hated him originally and why they sold him into slavery? Because Joseph had a dream that all of his brothers would bow down before him. And here it's actually happening. Like this is one of actually multiple times that it will happen. Why? Because what God says comes true. It's the reason why you've got to know this book and not just speed read through it. Is because it tells us everything that's happened before. It tells us what's going on right now. And by the way, this book tells us what's going to happen next. It tells us what's going to happen to the end of the age. But if you don't know this book and you don't know God's word, you won't know what's going down when it happens. This is the power of knowing God's word. Verse 7, Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them. But he acted as a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. Then he said to them, where do you come from? Now I know at first, this seems kind of weird that his own brothers don't know who he is and they don't recognize him. But understand, You change a lot between the ages of 17 and 40. All right, he's been gone a long time. For instance, here's me at 17, okay? Please tell me I look different than this today. Oh, please stop. All right, take it off the screen right now. You change a lot. But Joseph also was dressed like an Egyptian. Verse 8, please, let's move on. So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. You're just here to get information and try to attack us." He is purposefully messing with them. But let me explain this, because I've read this multiple times before, and I used to always think that Joseph is just finally getting some revenge, but that's actually not what he's doing here, and I want to explain this for a second. Some of you in this room, you've been hurt by people in the past that you were very close to, okay? Like right now, like there's even someone's face that's coming to your mind. And what we're gonna learn through this story today is that someone that is close to you that has hurt you, maybe you've forgiven them, but make sure that they've changed before you reconcile with them. Okay, let me break this down. And I put this in your service guides. This is the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiveness should happen immediately, okay? Someone's hurt you, you should offer them forgiveness immediately. Now, some of you are like, how is that even possible? You don't know how? Because Jesus forgave us. When we didn't deserve it, when some of you are driving around telling people God didn't even exist and the whole book is a bunch of phony stories, like he still died for you and he forgave you. Forgiveness should be immediately. But reconciliation, it takes time. And he's testing them to see if they have actually changed. I'll give you a great example. A wife cheats on her husband. He can forgive her immediately. But before there's reconciliation and trust again, he's gonna wanna make sure that she's actually changed. This is big. This is what we see through this story. Joseph is seeing if he can trust his brothers. Verse 10. And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come. We just come to buy food. We're all one man's sons. We're honest men. Your servants are not spies." "No," he says, "but you've come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said, "Your servants were just 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is actually still with our father today, and one is no more. We just can't find him." Isn't that funny? Because he's actually talking to this brother. The servants, it says in verse 14, "It is as I spoke to you," Joseph says, "you are spies. In this manner, you're going to be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison." So he basically says, I'm going to put all of you in prison, send one brother back to bring back Benjamin. But then he changes his mind later and he says, okay, instead of that, I'm going to send back all of you, and I'm going to just imprison one brother. And you make sure you bring back Benjamin. And it's going to say at the end of verse 20, and they did so, like they had any choice. Verse 21. "Then they said to one another, 'We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul.'" They're remembering Joseph when they sold him into slavery and how he was begging them not to sell me into slavery. Don't throw me into this pit. They're remembering, they're seeing a flashback. "And we would not hear," they say. "Therefore, this distress has come upon us." Notice, they are confessing their sin. They finally have a conscience, okay? Like we have not seen it up to this point. Verse 22, "And Reuben answered them saying, 'Did I not speak to you saying, do not sin against the boy?'" There's always one brother. It's like, I told you guys not to do this. You know, like there's always one. And that's Reuben. He's kind of a doofus. We're going to see in a second. "And you would not listen. Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us." But they did not know that Joseph was listening in and understood them, for he had spoke to them through an interpreter. And he turned himself away from them and he wept. Then he returned to them again and talked with them, and he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. So like he's crying. Why? Because he missed his brothers. He remembers his old way of life, but ultimately he sees that they actually have remorse. Now for the sake of time, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. He loads them up, he sends them back. They find that their money that they brought to pay for the grain is back in their sacks, and they're freaking out because it looks like they stole it. They tell Jacob, their father, and then they find out that all their money's in their sacks, and they really freak out, and Jacob is super upset. He will not let Benjamin go back with them. Now he thinks Simeon's dead because they stole their money back, and he's already lost Joseph, so no way you're taking Benjamin. Chapter 43, verse 1. Now the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, okay, now I'm hungry, go back, buy us a little food. But now Judah is gonna speak up. And I gotta stop here for a second, because Judah, you're about to see a transformation in his life. Remember when we first met Judah? He was a messed up dude. This was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like, you're talking about a guy that walked away from God, walked away from his family, was a horrible husband, was a horrible father. 2 of his sons are literally so evil, God had to kill them. Then he sleeps with his daughter-in-law. Remember that whole crazy junk that went down? That was a mess. He was a horrible guy. But then he confesses his sin. He makes it right. Remember we talked about that? He changed it. And now we're going to find Judah here in the story is very different from the first time that we met him. And so he speaks to his dad, and he says, Dad, in verse 3, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we'll go down and buy food. But if you don't send him, I ain't going down there. For that man said, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel, I love this. He's like, why are you doing this to me? Okay? And by the way, why'd you even have to tell him he had a brother? Like, that was not necessary information. Verse 7. The man asked us pointedly, Judah says, about ourselves and our family, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we told him this. Could we have possibly have known that he would have said, bring your brother down? It's not our fault. Then Judah said to Israel, his father, send the lad with me, and he will arise, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. And this is what Judah says. I myself, if you want to underline this, I myself will be surety for him. You know what he's saying? I'll give my own life for him. Now, what I skipped over a second ago, Reuben also offered a little package to Dad. Dad, if I don't bring back Benjamin, I'll kill my 2 sons for you. That's a great package, right? Not only will you lose a son, you can kill 2 of your grandkids. Most grandparents are usually up for that. No. Like, I want you to notice, though, the change in Judah. He says, I'll give myself up. He's taking responsibility. What we're seeing here is that before, when we read Judah's story, he was a boy, and now he's become a man. Men are willing to take responsibility. In our culture today, it encourages men not to take responsibility. It encourages them to stay boys. Don't get married, just keep living together. Don't provide for a family. Don't lead your kids and be the head of your household. Dad, man, just stay boys. You don't need that responsibility. And this is what we see through the life of Judah. He's become a man. And here's the main difference, if you want to write this in your service guides. The mentality for boys is, what's best for me? The mentality for men, what's best for us all? This is the big difference right here. For some of you guys in this room today, the big turning point in your life is gonna be when you finally take responsibility for your own sins and your own soul, and you're willing to say, God, I've sinned. I can't be good enough to fix it. I can't make this happen myself. I need you to save me. And he can save you of those sins, and then live as a man, taking responsibility for your marriage, for your family, for your personal actions. This is what men do. And this is what we see through the life of Judah. Your past can't control you unless you stay there. Judah didn't stay in his past. He changed, he confessed it, and now he's a different man. My prayer is that boys would walk into Guide Church and that they would walk out as men, because our world needs it today, more than ever before. Verse 11, let's keep going. And their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take with you, though, the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man. Now, Jacob is a con man. We saw that weeks and months even ago. Like, he knows how to schmooze people. So he's like, hey, man, put together a little gift for this guy. A little balm, a little honey, some spices, some myrrh. Everybody loves pistachio nuts, like they're good, and almonds. And take double the money in your hand. Take it all back to him that even the money that was returned to you and extra to buy more grain for us, maybe it was just an oversight. It was a mistake. And so they do it. So then the men go back, and I'm just going to break this down once again for the sake of time. They show up, and Joseph sees them and says, the first time he met him, he threw him in prison, right? The second time he says, I'm going to have a big meal at my house. You guys should come. And they're thinking, oh yeah, big meal means he's going to kill us because we took our money the first time. And so they're freaking out. And so they even tell the assistant of Joseph, hey, it wasn't our fault. Like, we don't know who put the money in our sacks, and we're scared, and please don't kill us. And like, they're really stressed out, and they're freaking out. So then verse 25, then they made the present ready for Joseph's coming, because it's about to have the meal, and they're getting their suck-up present ready to go, because we're going to win them over and like give them all this nuts and stuff. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house and bowed down before him to the earth. There we go again, bowing down again. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, is your father well? The old man of whom you've spoken, is he alive? I mean, Joseph hasn't seen his dad in 20 years. So he wants to know, is he still alive? And they answered him, your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive. And they bowed down their heads and prostrated themselves. They're bowing down to him again. I told you this is multiple times. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. This is his only blood brother. And he says, is this your younger brother of whom you've spoken? God be gracious to you, my son. Now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph basically runs out of the room looking for somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and he wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and he restrained himself and said, serve the bread. This is an ultimate dude move. I wasn't crying, serve the food. Like that's what he does. So they set him a place by himself and them by themselves. And the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat the food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. It's a whole thing we're going to get into in 2 weeks. The Egyptians considered shepherds, which is what these people were, to be unclean and really gross. We're going to talk about that later, so I won't get into it now. Verse 33, and they sat before him the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked in astonishment at one another. Then he took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as any of theirs. And once again, first time I read this story, I thought, man, Joseph's just really messing with his brothers. Like he's trying to get a little revenge. But there is a purpose behind this. Do you remember the first time they were so angry about Joseph and they were upset with him was because he was given more than they were given. He's trying to see if they've changed. Can you see it? The servants are putting out food. Steak for you, 5 steaks for Benjamin. Like piece of cake for you, cherry pie for Benjamin. Like they're giving him the best, right? And he's trying to see, are they going to get really angry? Are they going to want to kill Benjamin too? Are they going to sell him into slavery? He's trying to see if they've changed at all. And we're going to see the rest of this story next week. This is going to upset a lot of you, okay? Because I'm going to leave you cliffhanging. Some of you are going to immediately read ahead. Don't do it. The moral of this story, write this down, and this is in your notes. It's wise to test people before you trust them. It's wise to test people before you trust them. In the New Testament, Paul tells Timothy, he warns him, do not be hasty putting people into a position of ministry. Don't do it. Don't do it in a hasty way. Don't just plug someone into a spot. Make sure they've been tested. Make sure that they are legitimately qualified. You see, forgiveness is not based on the other person changing. It's based on your heart. So many of you in this room right now, you know what really triggers if you've got a forgiveness issue? When you hear a person's name or if you picture their face, it immediately causes anger in your heart. You know what that tells me? You haven't actually forgiven a person. You're still got bitterness towards them. That forgiveness is supposed to be something we as believers offer to others immediately. Reconciliation, though, it takes time. Some of you are very frustrated because you want to know what happens next in this story. Like, is there a group hug? Is there a big battle? Like, what's going to happen? But I want you to understand that working through relationships, especially in your own family, takes time. It's not like a sitcom where everything's just fixed by the end of the episode. Today, in one message, I wasn't going to fix all your problems through this story. If you've got stress and strain, and you've got a big conflict in your family or amongst your group of friends or a person you used to be close to, it is not going to be fixed overnight. As a matter of fact, write this down. Sin separates, God restores, but time is necessary. Today, if you've been sinned against greatly by someone else, learn from Joseph's example. Forgive them, love, serve, and move on. If you've sinned against someone else, repentance is going to be the only solution to the problem. They need to see that you have legitimately, actually changed before they're going to trust you. Some of you in this room, that's you. You're the brothers that have sinned against someone else. And I want you to see that in this story, these brothers are not the same as they were before. We've seen them confess their sin now. They named it openly. They're willing to be honest about it. And over both of these groups of people is God himself. And our God is a God of reconciliation. When the only thing that he could do to save you and be reconciled with you was send his own son to die. He gave you his son as a sacrifice because he wanted to be reconciled with you. Sin does not have to separate you from God anymore. And sin does not have to separate you from other people anymore in Christ. This is what we learn through the story of Joseph.